Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how I use my brother's ScanNCut 2 and my pattern templates to cut out the applique shapes out of fabric for these two cute adorable mug rugs. Stay tuned to the end of the video. I'm going to show you how I use the backing as my binding as well. Let's have some fun. Today we're going to be making two of my stocking mug rugs. These patterns are available in my Etsy shop. To start with, I'm going to start with the PDF, and this is included in the pattern. They're traceable templates, and we're also going to be working with the SVG files. Because we're making two of these mug rugs, I've already prepared all the fabrics for the mug rug, and now we're ready to start with the fabrics that we're going to use with our cutter. Today I'm using Heat and Bond Light, and I'm going to take my templates from the PDF pattern and give myself a little bit of extra room around all of the pieces to make sure that the Heat and Bond Light covers the fabric that we're going to be cutting. Now, because I'm making two of these, I'm going to allow myself enough room for two of each one of the template pieces. So I'm just going through and marking off different sections, and I will write on each one of the sections so I don't forget by the time I get to the cutter which piece goes with each fabric. Now I can cut out and separate each one of the pieces of Heat and Bond Light. And this does not have to be perfect, they're just rough cuts. We want to make sure that our fabric and our Heat and Bond Light extends a little bit past the size of the piece that we're cutting out. Now I can bring in my iron and my pressing board. And what's really great about this is we get to use up all of the different scraps that we have. We're going to be fusing our pieces to the back side or the wrong side of the fabrics. And I'm just going to bring you along as I play with each one of the different pieces, lining up everything and just doing rough cuts. Now what's really great about this is you do not have to be exact, and you can use all of the odd shaped scraps that you have in your stash, which is really awesome. Once you figure out all the different fabrics you're going to use, you can start fusing down your Heat and Bond Light. Again, we're fusing to the wrong side of the fabric. Now, a lot of my patterns come with SVG files. I know the Brother ScanNCut simply converts the SVG files into the type of cutting file for the Brother ScanNCut. I know there's different cutters on the market. You may have to convert the SVG to a different type of file for your cutter. I'm not very familiar with like the Cricut and the Silhouette, but I know that there are ways to take an SVG file and convert it to your cutter. I've seen lots and lots of tutorials on YouTube. Now we're just fusing down our Heat and Bond Light and cutting out each one of the pieces. This does not have to be exact. And one thing for me is the cutter, when you're doing lots and lots of projects, I know this seems like it might be a little bit redundant, but if you are cutting out lots and lots of pieces for a project, it really does save a tremendous amount of time. And it cuts out your pieces perfectly. I'm going to finish fusing this and trim it up, and then we're going to go into the office at the computer, and I'm going to show you how to bring in the SVG file into the Brother Canvas workspace. So we will go ahead and head into the office. Here we are at our computer, and I have the Canvas workspace open on my desktop, and we are going to select a new project. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to bring in the SVG file. We're going to choose the file and locate that wherever you have saved it on your computer. So it's going to take me a second. I'm opening up the stocking mug rug, and right to the right is the SVG file. I'm going to select that and hit OK. That's going to bring in all the pieces of our mug rug. Now, the PDF is saved as a mirror image, so if you're tracing your templates onto your fusible, you're ready to trace. When I saved the SVG, I saved them the right side up, so you do not have to flip them over. And now you can select each one of your pieces and move them around on your mat. You can also rotate your pieces, moving them around. You can also duplicate your pieces. By right-clicking and hitting duplicate, you can make as many pieces as you want right here. So just like that. You can also select several of them and hit duplicate and save yourself some time. Just like that. So now, because our stocking is rather large, I'm going to go ahead and, here in just a second, I'm going to erase these other pieces for now, and we're just going to work with the stocking. We're going to cut these out first, and then we will come back and cut out our other pieces. So I duplicated one of the stockings, and now I have two. And at this point, you'll save this file to a USB, or if you have the wireless card, you can go ahead and send it to your cutter wirelessly. And that's what we're going to do here. So you can hit send, and now it's ready for our cutter. Here we are at the Brother ScanNCut. I'm going to choose pattern and then bring my files in wirelessly. It's retrieving those files, and there are our two stockings. And the next thing we'll do is go ahead and scan the fabrics on our cutting mat. Now we're ready to go ahead and place our fabrics down onto our mat. Now here's a little tip. I have used this mat. This mat has cut out 84 fabric anchors for my anchor quilts. And before I started those quilts, it cut out tons and tons and tons of pieces of paper for my journals. And so it is not very sticky at all. Here I am taking a baby wipe, an alcohol-free baby wipe, and going over my mat and cleaning off all the little fuzzy bits from the fabric anchors. And what this does is it clears off your mat and it revives the stickiness of your mat. Now it might not bring it back to the original tackiness of your mat, but you would be surprised at how much of that fuzzy stuff that you actually get off. See my baby wipe? It is covered with lint and fuzzies all over it. So before I start a new project, I take a baby wipe and go over the entire surface. You might have to put in a little bit of elbow grease on it and really work it, but you get off a lot of lint and little bits of paper and fabric pieces. You can see the impressions of the anchors. This mat has been through the ringer, and I have a new mat, but I'm not quite ready to go ahead and break that out yet. So in today's video, I'm using this worn out mat and we're going to cut out our pieces. Let this dry before you move on. All right, our mat is good and dry, and it's tacky once more. Again, it's not as tacky as a brand new mat, but we're going to make this work. I have our stocking fabrics, and we're going to place them with the heat and bond down onto the mat so our fabric is pretty side up. Now, because we're using the Brothers ScanNCut, we do not have to be exact with our fabric placements. We're going to scan the mat and move the pieces around. Now, you'll see after I cut out the stockings that the tackiness of this mat is not quite strong enough, and I don't rub my fabrics down exactly hard enough, and I'm going to have a little bit of an issue. If you're using a new mat, you will not have this issue. Rub your fabrics down, and we're going to meet at the scanner. We're at the machine now, and I'm ready to go ahead and load in my mat. Just like this. Once the mat is loaded, I'm going to push the scan button. It's going to feed the mat through the scanner, and this is going to allow us to move around our pieces exactly over top of our fabric. There's our fabric. I'm going to bring you in closer so you can see the screen a little bit better. All right, now we are a little bit closer to the screen. We can make our images larger and move around by the little arrows on the right of the screen. You can click on each one of your pieces and move them around. You want to make sure that your piece actually fits within your fabric scrap. You can go all the way down to the mat, checking to make sure that your piece is located exactly where you want it. Now, you want to check your settings, and for each time you cut out fabric, you're going to want to add a test cut. You can choose different shapes, and it will go through and cut your test cut before cutting your actual pieces. And so if you're using a new fabric and you're not sure what your settings should be, you can adjust them before you cut out your actual pieces, and that's really nice. It's a nice option to have. Now for my fabrics, I have a cut speed of 1 and a cut pressure of 5. Again, you might have to adjust this for the blade that you're using and for the fabrics that you're using. And my blade is set just above number 6. Again, you'll need to do some test cuts and check out your blade depth before you begin. All of our settings are ready to go, and we're ready to cut out our stockings. Now you will see I'm going to do this in actual time. I'm not going to speed up the video during this part, so you can see how quickly it'll cut out my stockings to the perfect exact shape. But you'll also see the fabric raise up in a few different spaces, and this is because I'm not using a brand new mat or a mat that has a good amount of tackiness to it. And I did not press down my fabrics really hard, and so it will lift in a couple different places. And in those places where it lifted, the cutter did not cut, and you'll see that here in just a second. We can remove our mat and continue on. Now we can remove all of the extra fabric around our stockings, And you can see right here was a little place that did not cut because it sort of buckled underneath of the cutter, and on this piece too. So it's probably time to break out the new mat. So now I'm going to manually go in and correct the little bottom of the stocking. At this point, we're ready to go ahead and select our other pieces of our stocking. So I'm going to clear out this page and open up a new cutting file or a new mat. Again, I will bring in the SVG files. And this time we can get rid of the stocking. And now we have these pieces to cut out. So I'm going to duplicate them because we'll be cutting 2 of each one of the pieces. So you can see if you're doing multiple projects all at one time, you could fill this whole mat up and then have your cutter cut out each one of your pieces. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate these pieces and send it over to the Brother ScanNCut. Now we can get all of our other fabric pieces ready on our mat. I'm going to remove the stocking and then peel off the paper from the toe area and place that on the mat. The heel area and place that on the mat. And then our 2 cuff pieces. This time I'm going to push them down a little bit harder and make sure that they're nice and secure on my unsticky mat. Pushing them really down. Sometimes a brayer really helps to push these fabric pieces down. And next we're going to go ahead and cut these pieces out at the machine. Here we are back at the machine. I'm going to bring in the pieces from the computer. And there are all of the other pieces that we have left to cut. I'm going to load the mat. And then we're going to scan in our fabrics. I'm scanning this in real time so you can see it does not take very long for the scanner to read each one of your fabric pieces and then brings it up on the screen, and now we can move all of our pieces around. Now I am going to speed this section up because I want you to be able to see without taking up too much time how you can rotate all of your pieces and turn them by either 90 degrees or 10 degrees or sometimes even 1 degree if you just have to rotate it just a little smidge. Then you can select each one of your pieces and make sure they're centered on top of your fabric. You can zoom in so you get a closer look. You can see I'm going to have to rotate my toe and heel area pieces. So I just click on each one and rotate them around so that they'll fit better onto the fabric piece. We're going to go in a little bit closer. Center our pieces right onto the fabric. And that's one of the features about the Brother ScanNCut that I absolutely love. Now we're ready to cut. Now we're ready to go ahead and cut out all of our pieces, and I'm going to keep this section of the video in real time so that you can see that in less than a minute it's going to cut out 2 of my cuff pieces, 2 heel areas, and 2 toe areas perfectly. And so while the setup and the scanning might take just a few minutes, the actual cutting part goes by very, very quickly. Now I do think I should have cut my scrap pieces a little bit bigger, and then I would not have had to take as much time making sure that all of my pieces were exactly placed within each one of the fabric scraps. That was a little bit time consuming. So if you cut your pieces a little bit bigger, the time you spend adjusting all of your pieces will be a lot less. And it is cutting out the last piece now. And then we're ready to reveal all of our pieces. We can unload the mat and carry on. Now we're ready to go ahead and remove all the extra bits of fabric. And you can see this time there were no skipped areas with the blade on the fabric. I do think before I do my next project, I will bring out my new mat. But you can see how quick it actually cuts out the pieces, and all the pieces are exact to the pattern. And so they all line up perfectly, just like that. I know sometimes when I'm manually cutting out my pieces, sometimes I go a little bit off the line and then my pieces don't meet up or match exactly. So this cutting machine does save a lot of little mistakes that I manually make. Now we're ready to finish our mug rug. We are back in the studio, and I'm going to go ahead and take the top fabrics from my two mug rugs and fuse down all of my little pieces. Now if you have any questions about using your brother's ScanNCut, I would love to try and help, or help as much as I possibly can. You can jump down to the comment section below and ask your questions, and I will try to be timely in getting back to you. There are tons and tons of tutorials and videos on the brother's ScanNCut on YouTube, and that is where I learned. And so I highly suggest, if you are trying to make up your mind about purchasing a cutter and you're investigating all the different types of cutters, that you sit down and watch videos on all different types before making a decision. I absolutely love my brother's ScanNCut. Not just for fabrics, I use it in my scrapbooking and journaling. I'm just fusing down all my pieces, and then I'm going to go ahead and quilt down my little two mug rugs, and then I'm going to show you how I use the back as the binding. So I think that will save a lot of time as well. Here we are, everything has been stitched down. Aren't these just so adorable? I embroidered my friend's name on the top of the stocking, and I think this is going to make a super cute little Christmas gift. Now I thought I would bring you along and show you how I use the back as the binding to finish off my little mug rug. I'm using a glue stick, and I'm going to start on the long edge of the quilt, and first glue down the 1-inch piece of backing material in half, and then apply more glue, and then fold that binding up over top of my quilt. I'm going to dry and heat set the glue with a good hot iron with no steam. And I say no steam because you are working with your fingers right next to the iron, and I don't want you to burn your little fingers. I am using an Elmer's Extreme glue stick. It is super, super tacky, and so I really like this glue stick. Again, folding one time, re-gluing, and then folding the second time up over top of your mug rug. Drying the glue, we're going to move to the short sides, and I apply a little bit of glue to my corners and fold them in 90 degrees. right along the edge of the quilt. Give that a good press with your iron. Apply more glue and fold your binding in half to the edge of your quilt, just like we did with the sides. Apply more glue and fold that up over top of your mug rug. And this is the part where you can get your corners exactly right. Give yourself nice, pretty little mitered corners. Turn it around and do the exact same thing. First with your corners at a 90-degree fold. Dry the glue and press those corners nice and flat. Apply more glue and fold your binding in half. And then once more right over top of your mug rug. Now once you've done this, you're going to want to go around with a straight stitch and stitch everything down along the edge of your binding to complete your project. And so you can see using the back saves so much time versus making a traditional binding. And it finishes your project so cute. Thanks for joining me today. I'd love to hear from you down in the comment section below.